Yeah, there's competing stuff. I mean, we have thoughts, we have a base feeling sensation. There's it's more it's we have it, and we have the emotions, and then we attach through our conditioning, through our education and maturation. We attach emotions to things. Now, obviously, for you, the word survival creates an emotional response. Like, yeah, that's a good thing. Survival. Yeah, good. For me, that good has been bloodied, that it's been bludgeoned, it's been dented. So this survival good all of a sudden doesn't have this, it's not as big a word for me, it's a much smaller word. And this other word is creeping up, this with the red letters saying, no, it's a bad thing because we're paying too much for it. So these are the associations, this is the connections our brains are existing in. That's the state of the neurology, is these associations.
I don't buy. To me, the brain is who we are. The brain is our consciousness. It's our consciousness, subconsciousness. It's everything within itself. It's what goes on in our head, literally.
Yeah, well, I've never even come close to implying anything else. Of course, our brain is our consciousness.
And it's like you had Freud say things like the ego and superego. And there are things within the brain that are working in parallel with each other, but at the same time, it is the brain working as a coherent function, really, not as a warring confederation of tribes.
Yeah, but the consciousness is not the brain. Okay, the consciousness is one functionality of the brain, one veneer, one little tiny piece of what the brain is doing is what flies through consciousness. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of processing going on that we're completely unaware of. I just composed this sentence without having any conscious input into the construction of it. It flew out of my mouth without me editing it whatsoever consciously. I had no chance to say, no, take that word out and replace it with that word and switch those two around. No, all of that happened subconsciously.
Or, I don't know the way I want to put it, it's like the frontal lobes filter actions. It's like when you drink, when you get really drunk, the frontal lobe gets inhibited and you decide to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. It's the brain working as a coherent function. Anyway, that's a bit of it.
Or the opposite argument could be is that those are just suppression programs. There's software running, and some of them are to inhibit recklessness and are the rest of the mechanism. So there's just a bunch of competing software programs, and they're all kind of fighting against each other, and the end result is our personality. And if you kill one or two of those voices, one of those guards, or those whatever you call people at the door, then the bouncers, if you kill those bouncers, well, then all of a sudden the rabble is free to fuck up.
Tangent. But it's like, so yeah, it's going to be a short video, but then again, my videos yesterday were all 10 minutes and boring, so I'm going to try and keep it short. The suffering, for me, is half of the issue. It's all very well to look and see on something as suffering and saying, yes, that is a key arbiter of why something's bad, but you have to have something else. You have to look at the suffering and say, why is this suffering bad? For example,
no, you have to just put it in, like you said before, some sort of context. So what are you getting for what you're paying? It's like paying money for something at the store. You have to decide whether what you're purchasing with that suffering is worth having.
Well, he brings up war in his video and he says war's bad, but at the same time, if you go become a soldier and you fight for your country, people will look at you as a hero. Whereas, because it's like that old saying, kill 4 people at home, they hang you, kill 400 out here, they give you a medal. And it's that same sort of thing. It's the service of the collective. I know, I sound like a communist, don't I?
Yeah, but I mean, you could use the same rationale to justify slavery and say, well, it so enhances the productivity of our civilization and keeps us so advanced, gives us premature advancement, that therefore it can be justified. But the moral imperative would say it's too high a price in terms of suffering to pay. But those are always going to be very tricky moral equations. I was talking about that last night. I mean, that morality becomes really convoluted because yeah, you could do something in the short run that was completely horrific to gain some sort of long-term sustainable functionality, some sort of long-term efficiency where you saved yourself tremendous harm in the future by having a big giant bucket of harm in the present. But those are dangerous equations, and I would sort of argue if your civilization is dependent on those very dangerous equations, then maybe it shouldn't exist.
Oh yeah, because you mentioned, let's look at it outside the social contract for a minute. You can't look at humans outside the social contract.
Of course you can. I can make a declaration, I could watch somebody's behavior, I could say he's guilty as hell, I could say he should be eradicated because he's a threat to everybody and he's just not worthy of having the right to life, and I could make a moral equation, say I'm going to kill Adolf Hitler in 1928 or something. I mean, the moral equation doesn't have to have a goddamn thing to do with this obligation to suppress everybody's individual authority to impose their will on each other. We're just basically, the social contract is just saying, I will not impose my values on you because I don't want you to impose your values on me. That's the social contract. The social contract has nothing to do with whose values are correct.
It's like looking at an individual chimp or barbary ape or gorilla and say, let's have a look at this gorilla's action outside the collective and say if this is a good or a bad thing. Because it's like, without wanting to sound too clinical and detached, it's what humans are. We're social, hierarchical creatures.
Oh, bullshit. We're stuck in that circumstance, but there's nothing, I feel no connection to the culture or the society or even the fucking human race. I'd rather I had nothing to do with them. I don't want my dignity soiled with their bad behavior. So fuck that shit. I'm an individual consuming a piece of hardware. I need, and there's the morality is the efficiency by which I satisfy my hunger. How efficiently I eat is basically what morality comes down to. How efficiently do you eat? And obviously there's going to be greater efficiency in how all of us are capable of eating if we live in a society that creates a more efficient trough for us to eat out of, and takes advantage of the mass production and all these other little efficiencies that can make us capable of consuming what we need more effectively and efficiently without minimizing the amount of harm created. But that's the only connection we as individuals have to this institution of society.
We survive within societies. It's why when people are loners, they become slightly weird, etc.
Yeah, well, I think that's complete crap too. There's a lot of weird people in all kinds of positions. I mean, and weird is just so, again, it's by what standard, by what rule are you measuring this weirdness functionality? I mean, somebody who goes and joins the army and goes and kills people without even thinking about what the fuck they're doing and never questioning the judgment of the Uncle Sam who pointed at them and said, yeah, Uncle Sam needs you. I mean, that's a weirdo in my opinion.
Anyway, if there's anything that you think I've left out or ignored or been unfair about, comment. See you later.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't accuse you of unfairness, but yeah, maybe it's semantics, but again, I just think this argument is so wrong to say that morality has something to do with what the observer's feeling. Objective morality doesn't have to do with what by subjectifying the object observer. The intelligence making observations, describing, writing it down on a piece of paper. What is this living thing doing? How is it functioning? How much fuel? How much harm is it consuming? What is it producing? That's the moral equation. And I'm arguing that, yes, it's a very complex equation for a lot of our interactions, our circumstances. We can't know what will happen absolutely, so it's hard to make absolute statements. My only argument is the constituent value of harm is absolutely negative. We just don't know how negative. And that it's absolutely a positive to get rid of those negatives. And it's absolutely, that's, and then there's some question about what the exact value of a satisfied desire is, and all of these other things become part of that equation. But it's basically an efficiency equation. How efficiently are we functioning? How much of the fuel of suffering are we consuming to get the car of humanity down the road? Yeah. Okay. Enough of a video. Anyway, sorry about the length, but there's just way too many bendings of terminology to just sit there and paraphrase this. Just because each little twist of the terminology needs to be pointed out and illustrated what the differences are here. Morality is a description of reality. It is not something you feel.